my intro, you say a few things, I say something, you say something, then we say a lot of things, and then we drink. Hello, whiskey fans, once again, and welcome to our third installment of Two Nimrods Drinking Whiskey, the one whiskey show that's not afraid to ask the tough questions, like, may I have some whiskey? And where the hell are my pants? Seriously, cannot find my pants. Anyway, join me, Norm, and my co-host, drinking buddy, and most appropriately, fellow Nimrod, Brian.
Hello, I too am a Nimrod.
As we continue our journey through the wonderful world of whiskey. So, how's it going today, Brian?
Hey, it's going pretty good. I'm pretty excited to drink whiskey. It doesn't take too much for that. But today's offering will be a nice change of pace compared to what we've talked about before. And I just want to remind the viewer at home that, as you might be able to guess from our name, we are amateurs and really don't know what we're talking about, but we like to hear the sounds of our voice. So keep that in mind as we review today's offering.
You haven't seen my pants yet, have you?
No, they might be on the ladder there behind you.
Oh, okay. I'll go check. I don't want to get kicked out again.
So Norm, tell us about what we're going to drink this week.
Well, today we were back stateside, and we were once again in the great state of Kentucky. And Brian, what's the first thing you think of when you think of Kentucky?
Marrying my sister.
That's right, bourbon. We are doing Buffalo Trace. This is our bourbon drink of choice today. Buffalo Trace, straight bourbon from Frankfort, Kentucky. They are owned by the Sazerac Company, and they claim to be the oldest working distillery in the United States, going back over 200 years.
Impressive. They should have got it right by now.
Yeah, you think so.
I did a tiny bit of half-ass internet research. And basically, from what I can find, how bourbon got its name and exactly how it originated are all a little murky. It's pretty much believed that the use of the word bourbon is derived from a French word, which was actually about a 200-year noble house in France, but how they applied that to moonshine aged in oak barrels is a little bit fuzzy. Much like many historical facts in the South, each little region of the South kind of has their own origination story for how certain things came to be. So it's hard to sort out who has the correct story. But it is fairly certain that the notion of distillation of spirits probably came to the southern United States via Scotch or Scotch-Irish immigrants who they know a thing or two about distilling some malt.
And probably with the stories, I've heard several different stories too. There's probably a little bit of truth in each of them, and then everyone just took one story and tried to probably expand on it a bit.
I think
things
so.
I heard there's a bourbon, I think it's Bourbon County that's in Kentucky, or Bourbon region, what it was called. So that's where they started making whiskey. So that's one of the reasons they say it got its name. Part of the reason they said it got its color was because in Louisiana, New Orleans area was a big whiskey drinking region of the country, and they were trying to sell their product down there. But they liked, since it was a French region, they liked their cognac. That was the most popular drink down there. So to compete with it, they say they started to age the whiskey in the charred barrels to give it its color and a little bit of flavor, so they can kind of compete with the cognac down there in New Orleans.
Right.
And if anybody is curious what bourbon is, what we've picked up on is the mash must contain at least 51% corn, usually malted barley, rye, or wheat, kind of make up the rest of the mash. It has to be distilled at 180 proof or less. When it gets put into a barrel, it has to be no more than 125 proof. No additives. Has to be aged in a new charred oak barrel, such as for whiskey is all aged in used barrels. Whiskey, bourbon, particularly, it has to be made in a new charred oak barrel. And it has to be aged for at least 2 years to be considered bourbon. And what I also found out too is that it's you have to age stamp bourbon if it's been aged for less than 4 years. So I guess if it's 2, 3, or 4 years old, they got to put the age on the bottle. And a lot of bourbons don't want to put the age, don't want to have to put the age on the bottle because let you know how young it is.
Right.
So most bourbons, they'll tend to keep it aged for at least 4 years, so you don't have to put the stamp on the bottle. So most time, if you're getting bourbon, you don't. It's kind of assume if you don't see any age stamp on a bottle of bourbon, it's at least 4 years old.
I did not know that. I just assumed that if it was the longer they aged it, the more they would want to brag about it, but maybe not necessarily.
And Buffalo Trace claims they say they aged theirs 8 years. And some people I've read, even though Buffalo Trace says 8 years, some people claim it's probably closer to 9.5 years on average that they age their bourbon.
Okay. So, and I guess the Buffalo Trace mash is mostly corn, about 75%, a little bit of rye and a little bit of barley. So I suspect this is going to taste pretty sweet with that amount of corn in there. So I guess also with Buffalo Trace, they were somehow able to remain open during Prohibition. They were allowed to make whiskey for medicinal purposes. You know anything more about that?
Not them particularly, but I've heard that several times, and that is true. That since there are a lot of alcohol-based tonics back then, that if you can kind of, I guess, claim, doctors would prescribe you needed alcohol, whatever you had. Basically, I had a lack of alcohol, so I need some alcohol.
And so, as bourbon goes, it's a relatively affordable option out there. It's certainly not bottom shelf, but with a price range in the mid $20, that can fit in the budget of most people. Yeah,
no, it was good. Yeah, it was $26.99 here in Florida.
And I think it was like 23 here in Oregon, and Oregon is like just one notch above Russia when it comes to liquor. So I'm surprised Florida was more, but well, what do we do next?
Well, I guess we can start drinking, unless you'd want to chit chat some more.
Hey, well, that's a pretty good suggestion, because I happen to have a bottle here.
Because we're either going to start drinking or I'm going to start talking about my missing pants some more.
I have a glass with a big ice cube.
And oh God, don't tell me this is happening to me now.
Do I need to call Katie from down the street to come help you with that?
I thought it was Susie, but.
Oh, well, Katie's her younger sister.
Rocks.
As a rule, bourbon is not my go-to whiskey. I tend to find it a little bit sweeter than I like. So I always add a little ice to kind of water it down just a bit. That's just my palate. That's what I like. I would say this has a much stronger aroma than the previous two whiskeys that we had.
Yes, it is. I've noticed. Yeah, pretty strong. I can actually, you can smell there's the caramel, which expect to smell, and apple. I can smell the apple in it, definitely.
I feel like I get cinnamon and orange.
Yeah, the orange is in there too. Yeah, they say expected odors, what I read is like brown sugar, orange, honey, rye, mint, cinnamon, and some nutmeg influence. Very smooth drink. Actually, I'm going to try a little bit straight. Neat.
Got some pepper there. It's a little, I think it's compared to the scotch that we had before, I feel like I get a little more alcohol flavor. Oh, and we didn't mention that the Buffalo Trace is 90 proof.
Yes.
So that too lends itself to a little bit of water, I think, or ice. Okay, what else you got here?
No, I am. Definitely tasting the brown sugar in the. I want to say the anise, because it kind of has like a little licorice taste to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, there's a little spice like the peppercorns.
I kind of get that like at the end, I think.
Yes. Now I smelled a little apple, but I'm really not tasting the apple though.
Yeah, I can't imagine apple. I feel like it's more of a mouthful than the Scotch. And maybe a little bit more than the rye whiskey, because the rye is so peppery, it sometimes overpowers some of the other flavors, but this I feel like has more complex flavors than those other two.
You can feel more going on with it when you're drinking it, for lack of a better phrase. I said there's a lot going on in my mouth right now.
Isn't that the passcode at the Peekaboo Lounge? Oh.
Just so you know, anise and cinnamon are also working this weekend.
Are they?
Yes.
Good.
They said to say hi.
Perfect. So Mint was off?
Yeah, she was off this weekend. Like I said, when I was younger, I told you this before, I just mainly drank beer, never drank a lot of whiskey. And when I drank whiskey, it always seemed kind of harsh.
Mm-hmm.
And I could drink it mainly doing shots of whiskey, never really sipped whiskey and enjoyed it.
Right.
Until I got into Scotch a few years ago. No, this was again, hey, we like it. What a shock. No, but this is, I mean, it's very good. It's got some good flavors to it, a good aroma. And they said, and even I read a lot too, the price point of it. For the price, you're getting a very good whiskey for the price you're getting too. Yeah,
I mean, you're getting probably a whiskey aged 8 years for $25 or so. I will say, and this is I don't really know how to describe it because I am a Nimrod, but with many bourbons, after I've had my sip, tasted it, swallowed it, there's something that lingers, and it's kind of like a rancid sweetness. I don't really get it, but it's why I don't go to bourbon. I don't know if you get anything. It's like I had my last sip like 3 minutes ago, and I still have this odd sort of sweet, but not a happy sweet flavor on the front of my tongue. But
you don't see a lot of positive reviews with the word rancid in them.
The Decomposition Monthly, they probably use the word rancid in a positive way, you know. 3 dead bodies.
They were pleasantly rancid when they were discovered. No, since we started these, I've actually had more neat whiskey than I've had in a long time. I've always go with some ice.
Nice.
I'm expanding my mind, man.
We're going to start microdosing LSD before we do these reviews?
Whatever works.
That would be a hit.
Maybe if I did that, I can retrace the steps to find my pants.
I think you just need to let them go, man. Just let them go. You don't need pants, man.
So
I'd have to say that the Buffalo Trace, as a bourbon goes, pretty approachable, pretty tasty, and at a price you can afford.
No, you're right. I've heard good things about it. I've never tried it till now. This was my first time drinking it, and I'm happy with it. I like it. Yeah, you're right. Very affordable, and it's a really good bourbon especially for the price. Well,
thanks so much for sitting down and sharing a glass with me, Norm. Looking forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, it was good talking to you again, and everybody out there. May your bottoms be up and your worries be down.
Oh, by the way, I found these in the mailbox again.
My pants! My pants! Yes! I found my pants!